Here we go. Alrighty. So, for those who don't know who you are and what you stand for, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Anthony Hudson. Um, and right now I stand for people before politics in our country. I stand for standing up and having a voice of our own that needs to be heard. And in this country right now, and for as long as I can remember, the common people, the blue collar people, the people who live in poverty, do not have a voice in this country. And I think it's time to change the narrative and change the direction of this country so that we can all have a better quality of life here and protect our future moving forward.
I can definitely get behind that
Yep.
because I've seen it. I've only been on this earth 22 years, but I've definitely seen it.
That's about as long as I've been hearing about politics. I just turned 40 a week ago, and I used to think that politics didn't mean anything. Whatever happened in Washington only stayed in Washington, right?
Right.
And now I'm 46. I'm a father of two. I have a small business, and I feel the pain from a bunch of complete strangers and their decisions that they make for us. Um, I just think we need a better representation so that we could live better and have more freedom and liberty in the country, which is the way it was intended when we won our independence in 1776. So I'm trying to stand up and be that voice of reason so that we can salvage what this country used to stand for and like I said, change the narrative.
So, if you do happen to be elected, what would be some of the policies that you would tackle first, and how you would go about changing them?
Well, I think the first thing I would do is rewrite an executive order to reopen the pipeline that Joe Biden shut down on his first day in office. I know the pipeline wasn't functioning for us yet, but the future of that pipeline had a lot of great promise for this country as far as being fuel independent, the independency of fuel. I think the border crisis is something that has to be addressed immediately. We need to go ahead and figure out how we're going to finish the wall, protect the wall, and patrol the wall so that we can force our immigrants to come into this country legally. Uh, I'm all for immigration in this country. This country was founded on immigration. We immigrants have migrated here for hundreds of years, and we have to continue to have that.
Very
But we
true.
have laws here that protect us, so we know who's entering our country. And nowhere else in the world are you allowed to travel to another country without a passport. So why are we allowing people from all over to just walk across a river and get lost in our societies and take advantage of our benefits and make the money that they can make here, get the education that they can get here, and not pay taxes or not pay their dues? You've been here 22 years and you've been paying into Social Security and you've been paying taxes ever since you started working, and
Yep,
you don't get any of those benefits until you retire. I hate to say it, but that's the truth.
it's
And
true.
these guys are coming over here and they've been here a week and they have more benefits, more rights, or more say so than what we have, and this is our country. So I think the border has to be tended to. The other issue that I think we need to address is
Let me ask you a
our
question on that first.
go ahead.
Um, since we all know that illegal immigration, is a major problem in the U.S., how do you propose to fix it besides like the border? Because like my grandparents, like my grandfather, my grandmother, my mom, my uncle, and my aunt all came over here from Germany right after the war. And my grandfather had to work an entire year before he could send for his family to come over here. And not only that, but they had to have, and from my understanding, the way it was a while back is that you had to have somebody to sponsor you.
Right.
So somehow or another, that has all gotten twisted out of place. And not only that, I think in 1980, 87 or 97, something like that, all of the people that had been coming up to that point that had like a short-term visa, and they ended up like coming over here, and then when they went to go find those aliens to, say, hey, either you're going to stay and you're going to become a citizen, or you're going to get out and you have to come back again. So how did, like, they lost people because when they, accounted for who they were going to be with, or where they would know their whereabouts, they would come to empty lots. They would come to places that weren't even addresses. And, there's people that have been here for 20 something years that have been lost in the system because our system hasn't done anything to bring them about or bring them back, or say, hey, you need to, file and become a legal citizen of the United States, or you need to go back home. And like, my question is how do you propose to fix that? And also the ones that are not accounted for, that are already here, that have been living here for 20 something years and probably haven't paid taxes.
Right. Well, I think the key word that you said is they get lost in our society. They get lost in these big cities, and until they commit a crime, they get a speeding ticket, or we get a tip on an employer that's hiring illegal immigrants. It's kind of hard to find them. A lot of folks come over across the Rio Grande into Eagle Pass, Texas, and they can head one of two directions. They can go towards Houston, which is a city of 4 million people, or you can head towards Arizona, Phoenix area. You can get lost in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where we have a lot of indigenous people, and they can blend in easily. And I think it's going to be hard to track them down and force them to become a legal immigrant. I was always a big fan of tracking devices. Now they're getting cell phones, and they're getting tennis shoes, and they're getting vouchers and free bus trips. We ought to give them, if we're giving them cell phones, we ought to be able to track where their locations are. So that way, if they don't do it through the system, the due process, then we give them that ultimatum. But as far as tracking down the ones who've been here for 20 years, 25 years, I just don't know how this country's ever going to be able to find those folks unless they break the law and we catch them. And then we punish them to the full extent of our laws here, or we punish them and deport them. I do want to say that I would like to reform the immigration process, because too many times on my own shows on TikTok or Instagram, Facebook, I had people telling me that they're going through the process. You got a gentleman coming in from Canada 9 years ago, and he spent about $3,000 already. He's married an American woman already, but he doesn't have legal citizenship yet. And he got married last year, I believe. And his biggest question was, why does it take so long? And that's something I'd like to tackle. I know there's a lot of paperwork that gets filed. There's a lot of lawyer fees that go into immigration, becoming a citizen. And I think there's a way that we can reduce the cost of this so that they pay something up front, and then we give them that working visa for 12 months or 18 months and allow them to work, pay taxes, get settled with a place to live, and start paying the country back the difference of what they owe for their immigration fees. And once they get that paid back, I don't see why we can't process their citizenship papers in 60 days, 90 days, instead of 9 years, 10 years, 15 years, and $20,000. I think it's a ridiculous system. I think it's one that government has overlooked and tried to just kind of sweep under the rug for so long. And now we have an administration that says it's not swept under the rug, it's just left outside. We don't even want to acknowledge that it's a problem. So I think when it comes to the new immigration reform that I'm visioning for this country, it would be easy to track these people. If it stays under the current administration, then I think we're just going to we're going to have to chalk it up as a loss, because I don't know how you find these illegal immigrants unless they actually break the law and we get them into custody and find out we have no record of them ever being
Okay,
here.
and then
Pretty tough.
so with that, what is your stance on the veterans who are homeless and have mental disorders that, due to serving, are being discarded out on the streets, and then the immigrants who come in, they get every kind of benefit that we allow for anybody, and here we have veterans that are living on the streets, don't have a place to go, don't have, food to eat half the time, begging for money, and the people that are coming in as immigrants are getting better care than the veterans are.
You're absolutely right. They are. And, I've talked about, the excessive spending that we're doing right now, that our government is doing. We're printing a lot of money and we're sending it overseas, and it's causing a lot of this inflation that we have. And, I would like to reverse that. I would like to take our money that we collect through our taxes or through, these other programs, and I would like to spend the majority of that money here in this country and put a stop to spending money overseas. Because as we struggle today, and we all pay high gas prices and high food prices, there's not another country in the world that's running over here, to help pick us up. It's like we're on our butts right now in this country, and there's not a single ally out there that's rushing over here to help us get back on our feet. So I do propose that the United States become an independent country. We have all the resources here to be independent. We should be independent. And if we stop spending money overseas and start prioritizing how we spend that money in this country, we can have programs that will help the homeless, that'll help the veterans get off the street, that'll help increase SSI, that'll help increase the money that we put into our education system. We obviously want to take care of our military, our current active duty soldiers. Joe Biden said a couple of months ago that they are now eligible for food stamps. Why are we having the most powerful military in the world and we expect them to be on food stamps to survive when they're not scheduled, when they're not deployed overseas? So I believe that we could take some of these military bases and add some barracks to them and get our military veterans off the street and put them back on a base where we can take care of them, where we can reintroduce them into society, put a roof over their head, give them food. I mean, you've got chow in the mess halls. We're feeding soldiers as they go through basic training and their AIT training or special ops training, what have you. We can have veterans that are not necessarily participating in those programs, but still be able to go eat at the mess hall. We have enough money to do that. And I think
With the amount we're sending overseas.
Well, one of my campaign managers did some numbers the other day and said $5 billion would get every homeless veteran off the street. $5 billion. And how much money have we sent to Ukraine already?
About 23 trillion.
A lot.
$23 trillion. And now they're saying that
there's 11 of it that they can't account for.
Right. And I heard that the Pentagon just lost another 2.1 billion or something like that they can't find.
Really?
Yeah.
Plus the $80 billion we left in Afghanistan when Joe Biden pulled out of Afghanistan the way he did, and the 13 lives that were taken during that siege. So I think that we as a nation, last time I read this, the United States spent $727 billion a year on the military, and the number 2 most wealthy military was under $100 billion. I want to say it was around $68 billion a year. And at the time it was Russia. And if Russia's considered the number 2 strongest military in the world based on the military and what they've got, I'm not worried about the rest of the world, because Ukraine is handling their own against Russia. I get they're using our equipment, but they're being accurate when they're launching these missiles and they're attacking these tanks. They're being very accurate, and a lot of that is the technology that we provided them. But our stockpile is starting to get depleted, and it's taken us 20 years, 30 years to build that up. And what happens if we were to face an attack here from North Korea? We're going to have to pull everybody back home to protect our borders. And the reason I say that is because we're struggling to hire or recruit new military personnel because A, they're not getting paid, B, they're being told food stamps, C, they're not getting respected when they get out of service. So I understand there's programs like Tunnels for Towers that build these smart homes for veterans who've lost their legs or their arms. And, I think that's a great program, and my campaign has reached out to them. But again, the short answer would be change the narrative of how we spend our money overseas. All right. For even if I was elected for just 4 years and we told the rest of the world, all right, hold on to you when we can. But right now we have to focus on us, our military, our veterans, our homeless, our defense systems, our border. We need to tackle women's rights. We need to tackle equality. We got to shut racism out the door because I don't feel that there's a place in this country in today's day and age for racism. And we got to protect our children. Let's not forget about these companies like Balenciaga that is sexualizing children in their commercials. And you have stars like Ellen DeGeneres and her wife are wearing Balenciaga and walking down the street in Hollywood. It's like you're promoting it. We need to protect our children at all costs, whether it's in the schools
That's
or
number one.
it has to be. It has to
Well,
be.
that's one of the questions that I had. Well, not pertain to that. I mean, I have a whole like spew of Balenciaga. I do not like them at all, and like have brought it up several times just because it really annoys me. But you do have school aged children,
I
and
do.
I have a daughter that I homeschool because of some of the practices and things that happened within just the last year, 2 years, with COVID and the way that they shut down everything and the way that they were teaching. My daughter didn't learn anything.
Right.
And the thing that bothers me is like the school needs to be reformed because the mandatory testing is all they think about. That's all they talk about. That's all they plan for. And like depending on how many days your kids are in school, like you get 10 days for your kids to be sick, but then you have COVID. Like I got COVID in January. My whole family got it. My daughter was out 3 weeks. And on
Wow.
top of it, she had asthma related issues after that. The school was giving me a problem with like, why does she need an inhaler? I'm sorry.
Right. Well, I mean, you're a domestic terrorist if you try to challenge the school boards nowadays, and that's where the education board went wrong. Is one like today? Okay, we had a threat at my son's middle school, or yeah, I guess it's middle school. They're sixth and eighth grade, and they sent out a message to everyone that there was a threat, that they were going to enhance the security at the school today. They were going to have more police officers at the school today. And if kids that didn't go to school, they would be excused because of the situation. I sent my kids to school. I told them both. I said, you have your cell phones on. I want you to keep them in your pocket because I don't know what the threat is. I'm a mile and a half down the street. If anything looks suspicious or anything happens, I need to be the first phone call that you make.
Oh yeah.
And I would be there in a heartbeat. And there's not a person at that school that would keep me out of that school. But it seems like when we drop our children off at schools or we put our children on the bus, the schools feel like they have
Ultimate right
reciprocity
over our children.
over our children, and we don't have a say. A few, I don't know. My fiance's in the other room, but maybe a month ago, my oldest son, they called me and said he had head lice, right? And they said I need to come pick him up. Well, we immediately jumped on the CDC website, and the CDC website says that if they discover that your child has lice, no longer do you have to go home. You can treat it that night when you get home because lice, it doesn't just jump from one head to the other. There has to be physical
Right.
contact for a minute. So I went up to the school with a beanie, those little winter things you pull over your head. And they said, well, we'll go ahead and check him out. I said, no, you won't. You go by the CDC standards, right? She said, yes, yes, sir, we do. I said, well, pull up the website for the CDC, and I want you to go to the section of lice. And I stood there while she did it. And she read it. And I said, if you follow the CDC guidelines, then my son is staying at school. I'm going to put this beanie on his head to help keep everything kind of on him. And I sent him back to the classroom. And the lady behind the desk was just like, I can't believe you did that. And I guess it's kind of my character to hold people accountable for their actions. If you say you're going to follow CDC, then follow it. And I give the praise to my fiance for finding that and showing that to me before I brought my son home, because during COVID, my son would easily get distracted when he's on his Chromebook, and I saw his grades drop tremendously. And now our governor, Governor Gretchen Whitmer here in Michigan, says, well, we were only out of school for 90 days. And I'm like, what are you smoking in the great state of Michigan? Because we were out for like a year and a half,
Exactly.
It was ridiculous. And my kids lost their social skills. They missed their friends. They didn't get to play sports. Couldn't leave the house because when we go get groceries or whatever, I would be the one that would venture out to get those things. And it was like, are we really living in a world, a United States of America, where our government is telling us we have no freedom and no say as to what we do with our children or with ourselves as far as our life is concerned? And like my business, I own a small trucking company, and the governor, Gretchen Whitmer, I hope she listens to this show. Just for the record, I did not vote for you. But she shut me down, and it cost me upwards of $200,000 to be out of business during 2020.
Wow.
And no, I didn't make that money back. But Marco Rubio down in Florida he kind of created the PPP loans for small business owners. And if it wasn't being eligible to get those things, I wouldn't have made it as a business owner. And that's something else I'd like to tackle in this country, is because I know there's a guy on my campaign that I really, really like this guy. He ran for governor in Colorado. I'm not going to mention his name. But he's also a small business owner. He owns one semi. I own one semi. And the difference between him and I is he's an African American in Colorado, and I'm a Caucasian male in Michigan. I qualified for over $65,000 with the PPP loan. He didn't qualify for $1. So the discrimination
Really?
between, yeah, really. And I'm sure he would love to come on and tell you his frustrations about it. But the discrimination with the Small Business Administration, the SBA, is ridiculous. If you're going to be titled the Small Business Administration, I don't care if you have one employee or 100. If you're a small business, you should qualify for expansion loans, equipment loans, lines of credit, disaster loans, emergency loans, something to keep your business going. Because if it weren't for small businesses in this country, there would be a lot more homeless people and a lot more people without a roof over their head. So we need to tackle
this place started on a lot of that.
Right.
This place has started on a lot of small businesses.
It did, and I'm glad to see more African Americans and Hispanics and females going out and getting their own businesses. The minorities that we would look upon from yesteryear. It thrills me to death to see these guys going out and starting their own business, whether it's a salon or a trucking company or a construction company or even just electrical or building fences or decks or something. Do it yourself, make your money, get what you want, because that's what the United States stands for, right? Bring me, you're tired, you're weak, you're weary, and you can have the pursuit of happiness. Go after your dreams. And with all of the stuff that's going on and all of the tensions and the hot temperature of everybody these days, I finally said one day, I am tired of arguing and complaining with people that I care about politics. So I want to do something about it. And maybe this is a little big for me, but I just jumped off one of them high cliffs in the Red Bull high diving competitions all over the world, and said, I'm going to go for president of the United States of America. And at 46, you realize I could run for the next 5 elections before I become Donald Trump's age.
Yeah.
So if you want younger and you want a new face and you want to change the face of government in the United States, I'm probably one of the youngest candidates that you're going to have on the ballots in 2 years.
let me ask you another question. So what is your opinion of the deal that Biden or our presidency and Russia for the arms dealer Victor Bout for the WNBA star Whitney Griner when there is a veteran Paul Whelan that was left behind? Especially since we have funded trillions of dollars to Ukraine to fight Russia. I mean, it's like we're slapping both of them upside the head, going, "Oh, let's play with this one for a little while. Hey, let's play with this one for a little while."
Right. And I did a TikTok yesterday. It's the last video I did, and it's up to about 145,000, 150 views, which it grew pretty quickly talking about this. And after I did that video, I wanted to do something a little bit more controversial, but I'm starting to catch wind of the names of people who are watching my videos online and who are supporting me. So I kind of don't want to push that controversial button too much. But we literally traded a vape for a national arms Russian dealer.
Yep.
A vape for an arms dealer. That's what we traded. We traded a basketball for a gun dealer. And I think, anytime we get an American to come home, that's great. All right. We all have to acknowledge the fact that we got one person home.
Very much so.
But I hope Brittany Griner is prepared. All the blood that's going to be on her hands, the one that came out of Russia, and now they're going to have a target on their back when they're in that part of the world. Are they going to be shot? Are they going to be arrested? Are they going to be overcharged, like 9 years for a vape in an airport? I think that's ridiculous. But Joe Biden's also got to drop a pair and stand up and say, listen, Vladimir, I get you're pissed that we sanctioned you with all this stuff and we stopped purchasing oil from you and we're giving your enemy weapons, but I'm not going to give you one of the most dangerous men in the world for a 6'11". Forget the fact that she's lesbian, but anti-American female stand for the national anthem that doesn't appreciate this country, and I'm going to trade you this guy who's a 10 on the scale for a literal 1 or a 2. It should have been our Marine. What'd you say his name was? I'm having a brain fart.
I am too. Hold on for a second.
But him, Brittany, and there's an American teacher,
Paul Whelan.
Paul Leland, and from what I've read,
there's another one too that's over there too.
Over there also, I believe.
Yeah, there's two. One of them, he had an eighth, I think, of an ounce of marijuana that was legally prescribed to him from the state that he was in, and he had less than what Brittany Griner had when she was arrested.
Right, but I think she's more of a public figure because she's an she's a WNBA star,
Yes, and I mean it should have been at least 3 of them.
I think it should have been. I think it should have been the Marine. It should have been the teacher, Griner. At least a 3-for-1 deal. And if they weren't willing to do that, then I would have made sure I had snipers in the area when he got off the plane in Russia. He wouldn't have taken more than 5 steps, and we would have gotten our girl home. I don't understand with the feud that's going on. First off, I read an article once where Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump had a meeting, and when Putin came into the room, he asked Donald Trump if he could sit down. Now that's respect.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
So they feared an old man, orange skin, and billions of dollars with the world's most powerful military in his back pocket. I'm 30 years younger than that man. I'm 6'2", 250 pounds. I will not be pushed around in a room ever by anyone. I don't care who it is. So if Vladimir Putin watches this show, he better be as happy as he can be right now, because if I win this election in 2024, nothing, and I promise you nothing, will go his way. And the same goes to China. We have the military to defend our allies and this country, and we have the money to make sure that our military stays a world power. We just need to utilize it the right way. And right now, all this stuff that I don't even know what you call it. That's why I use the word stuff. that Biden is doing. I don't know if he dreams these things in his midday nap, or if this is what his council, his cabinet, is actually telling him to say or do.
Well, that's one
Probably
of
the
the
person
questions
in
I
his
was going
ear.
to ask you about, granted, people get told things time and time again. You have groups of people that one person they don't like as much, and they'll tell, the other person that's more in control, oh, well, this person's talking about you doing this and this. And that makes the one person who really hasn't said anything, maybe they just don't like the person on a whole, but they've never really said anything. But there's rumors, people talk about people all the time. So my thing is once you get into office, how are you going to propose, like, the people that want to be naysayers, the gossipers, the ones that are supposed to be your right hand people, and making sure that they give you real true information and not just what you want to hear or what they want to tell you, and leave out like the most important parts.
Those guys won't have a job very long. I'm a blue collar, hardworking, middle class American man, and I plan to do my research and find people that are young, that are motivated, that are like minded, that have the same beliefs, and they're looking for an opportunity. I believe that we should have term seats in office, no more than
Well,
12
I
years.
heard on your TikToks that was one of the questions I had, because for me, like, I believe in term limits. I think every Senate, the House, all of them should all have term limits. But you
Right.
said you thought that they ought to have like 3. That's more than what a president gets.
Well, no, I meant like 3-4 year terms. Yeah, so they would get 12 years if they were elected each of their elections to hold their seat for a maximum of 12 years. And if you hit the age of 65, I feel like you should give up your seat and retire.
Yeah.
That is the retirement age in this country. We should know this country, in a modern world, in a modern era where technology and AI seem to be taking over everything, cannot be run by people that are in their mid to late 80s or mid 70s. I mean, there is a time frame where the body starts to deteriorate. We see it with Joe Biden. We see it with Bernie Sanders. We see it with Nancy Pelosi. And I just don't feel like they're capable of holding their seat. So let them run off into the sunset at the age of 65. If you won your seat for the first time ever and you were 62, you serve for 3 years, and then the runner up in your election will take your place, or however we decide to figure that out. But I think they should give their seat up at the age of 65 and no more than 12 years. And the reason I say 12 years is because when I'm elected in 2024 and then reelected in 2032 or 2028, and then I'm out in 2032, that group, that body of people that are in government can continue the work that I started for initial 4 years after I'm gone. Hopefully the president that comes in after me likes the job that we've done and continues to move down that same graph, so to speak, in the same direction. Because I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter if I was brought into office tomorrow and I started making these hard decisions to change this country. 8 years is not enough. It's a start. It's a place to get the foundation settled, get the concrete poured, and then it's up to the next guy to continue building the future for this country. And I hate to say it,
It's definitely going to take a minute to get this turned around.
It is. It absolutely is. And I think we need to do something about our technology in this country and the usage of our technology. And some people may not think about it, but when you walk into a Walmart and you see 3 human beings at a checkout and the rest of them are self-checkout, those replaced a person and their job. That took away someone from providing for their family. Now I'm all for having the 10 items or less self-checkout. You get in, you get out, boom, you got some toothbrush, soap, whatever, you scan it, you get out and you go, fine. But we now have, not only do we have the self-checkout scanners in Walmarts, they're in Home Depots, Lowe's, Costco.
I was working at a Circle K. And they had them.
Circle K. Well, McDonald's has them in some locations where you walk up to the big iPad and you punch in what you want and it goes onto the
Yeah.
TV in the back and they call you when it's ready. That's a job that an American used to have. And now Tesla is coming up with self-auto semi-drive trucks driving 18-wheelers, right? No. What are you going to do? You're going to kick every American truck driver out of a truck? You're going to take every employee out of a grocery store or department store? Are you going to take our fast food industry and I think it was Denny's. Denny's has a robot that they put your food on and puts the table number and it rides over to your table and you take your food off that robot. Let me ask you guys this. Who is going to support the United States when none of us have a job anymore because AI and technology have taken over?
There's going to be no one.
You go to these GM and Ford and Chrysler factories, you'll see robots mounted to the floor and to the ceiling, and they're constantly putting all these things on the cars, and they don't need days off. They don't need restroom breaks. They don't have sick days. They don't have to go to the doctor. They don't, if they break down, they fix it real quick, back to work. No big deal. And unlike humans, these robots and this smart technology is going to end up taking over the planet. What are we going to do? I like having all the stuff at my fingertip on my phone, like Google, or ESPN or the Weather Channel or, my Google Maps, syncing with my truck. And maybe I'm a hypocrite here because my truck has air conditioned seats and heated seats and heated steering wheel, but I paid good money for that, right? So just the cost of cars alone, the standard model car and all the technology that goes in that car makes that car a $30,000, $35,000, $40,000 vehicle, depending on where you live. Where they used to be a brand new car you could get for $15,000 to $20,000, basic model.
Yeah.
Yep.
Basic model now, 30, 35, 40 grand. And people who are paying $500 a month for their electric bill in Maine or in California, how are they supposed to do all that when the economy is so bad? They can't. And so the only way to turn this around, in my opinion, and again, I'm going to remind you, I'm a blue collar guy. I'm not a politician. I just listen to what my blue collar friends and family say and talk and argue about and try to come up with solutions that would make my family happy. If it makes my family happy, it's probably going to make your family happy. If it makes your family happy, it'll make the next family happy. So we've got to find a way to control big tech, slow down the technology, stop the censoring of online stuff, because in America, what's our First Amendment right? We need to have freedom of speech. We need to protect our children. We've got to just flip over, do a complete 180 and head the other direction. And it's not going to happen if Joe Biden wins again. It's not going to happen if Ron DeSantis wins. If Trump gets back into office, what that's going to be like. Yeah, he might help the economy, but he's too much in your face. He's too much of this on social media, and that's what got him in trouble all the time. And I think a lot of the
I believe that was media bias. They didn't like him because Trump was not in anybody's back pocket. He did not take money from anybody, and the reason why he did that is so he could not say, I don't owe you a favor, I don't owe you a favor, I don't owe you a favor. Right. I didn't take any of your money, so whatever you come with me, come correct, which is the right way, come correct, and
it's true.
Be what you're wanting. Ask me right. What you want. Don't sit here and tell me, oh, I gave you $1 million. You need to come and do this for me now. That's how it should be played. And it's not. People
that's why his house was raided in Mar-a-Lago, because they never came. He kept telling them, if you want the documents, tell me and I'll give them to you, or subpoena them and I will adhere to the law. They weren't directly asking him for them. They kept complaining that he had the documents. And next thing you know, it's all over the news. He's got FBI agents all over his home going in there, taking these documents. And you know what? Whether I voted for Trump or not in 2016 and 2020 is irrelevant. But I think the man has taken a political beating by the Democrats. And if he's elected again,
way
under-
more than what the Democrats would be crying and whining if
Yeah.
that was the case for them, and be like, oh, it's so unfair. Because like my thing is the whole media bias, like CNN, NBC, CBS, all of them, you know, they were like, oh, Trump did this, Trump did that, blah blah blah. And then when it comes to Biden, it's like, oh my gosh, he's just the most wonderful, brilliant man ever. You know, Kamala Harris did this. And I'm just like, do y'all even watch what you guys are like showing on TV on your own stations? Like, do you really watch this or not?
It's like,
Because my question for you is like, what, because the media is so biased with one particular side, and it's very obvious, how do you plan on, like, basically, because Trump one time said, and I'm not trying to bring up Trump just in the thing, but he sat there and told one of the CNN, you lie. You lied about me. You've lied about everything that was said. I don't want to talk to you. I'm not going to talk to you. I don't have to talk to you. Like, they were invited in to listen to what he had to say, and then they twist it all around. So he's just like, I don't have to give you any information and I don't have to answer any of your questions because you're telling lies. Whatever I tell you, you're telling a lie about it. So I will go ask somebody else, and they will report what I'm telling them. So how do you expect to, like, I mean, you know, they've got the two people that are commentaries that go in there and they just look like they're deer in headlights every time they walk in the door. How do you plan on keeping the media, like, honest? Not, huh?
How to keep the media honest, keep it fair.
Yeah. Yes.
I think it more sets with the FCC than it does the individual station, because the FCC kind of governs the laws of how they can report and what they can report. And it's obvious.
And that's federal. So, I mean, you know.
It falls under my jurisdiction. So, like, we all know CNN is everything Democrat, and Fox News is everything Republican, and Newsmax is pretty much everything Trump. That's what I gather when I watch all these three news outlets. And I don't like that they fight against each other. You know, I sit here the other day, earlier this week, and I made it a point to watch three different newscasts from three different stations locally here in Michigan. I had Fox, ABC, and NBC, and I watched the weather, I watched sports, and I watched the local news. Do you know the narrative on all three stations was exactly the same? Even though they were different
stations. I do the same thing with all three of our stations around here.
Yeah. So if what you do is change the way that the news operates, or change the mentality of what they want to report. If you want to report politics, you need to be fair and just across the line and give every candidate and every person in office the benefit of the doubt before you start judging and causing the turmoil that is now the division in this country. And people ask me all the time, why are you running nonpartisan? And I said, because the Democrats and the Republicans are the heartbeat of the division. And then it gets reported on CNN one way, it gets reported another way on Fox News, and that spreads out. So it basically tells us that if you're a Republican and I'm a Democrat, I'm not supposed to like you, or vice versa. I'm not supposed to like you. But we work together every day when we go to work, and it's okay. But outside, we can't socialize together because you're the opposite political belief from me. So nonpartisan says, hey, I believe Democrats, you have a point here. Republicans, I believe you have a point here. Now let's come to the table and put compromise on the table. Let's give a little, let's get a little, and let's find the best way to work together for the people. The people of this country have got to be the priority again, if they ever were. I know back in the old days, when the Constitution was written, it was we the people, because they governed the people for the people. Government worked for the people. Nowadays, government, we go to work to pay the government to have their private jets and fancy cars and vacation homes and all that stuff. They need a proverbial spanking to be reminded that they work for us. And we, the people, can stand up and vote for someone like Anthony Hudson, myself, to remind them we have the bigger, louder voice, and we will use it. And I think it's what we need. I think we need a reset. You know, the Bill of Rights says that we can abolish the government if we see it's unfit or if they purposely harm us or our happiness, pursuit of happiness. And what are they doing?
So,
They're
my
doing
friend,
exactly that.
sorry to cut you off. Sorry to cut you off. We're coming up on our 45 minutes here in a couple seconds. Anything you'd like to say in closing? Well,
Yeah, you know, I want the people to stand up, put their shoulders back, and be proud to be Americans again. If you have faith in this country and that we can come together and we can unify and make this country a great country again, vote for Anthony Hudson in 2024. Allow someone that comes from your roots and your neck of the woods to stand up for you, to take care of you, to defend you, and to always represent you. And we'll do the job. We'll do it together. And if you want to check out our website, it's anthonyhudson2k24.com. And if it's got all my information on there as far as my other platforms. And if you guys ever want to have me back, because we can talk politics, you know,
yeah, we'd love to have you back
every week. So if you guys want to have me back, let's come back and do this again.
And Chappy wasn't here because he was feeling sick. So next time he'll be here.
That's up to you guys. If you guys want to have me back, I'll make time for you guys. I've done my research on your show. You're an up and coming show, quite a few followers, and we definitely would like to work with you. We, meaning my campaign staff, and I would like to talk with you guys as often as you want to get the word out so people can start knowing that help is on the way if you choose to have it. Because you're not going to get it if you keep going with these corrupt politicians. It doesn't work anymore. It's time for a change.
Right. Yeah, we would love to have you back on.
Let's do it.
All righty. Well, my friend, you have yourself a wonderful evening.
You do the same.
And
if I don't talk to you guys,
we'll get a hold of you here shortly.
Have a great Christmas if I don't talk to you before.
You too.
Yes, sir.
All right. Always remember people before politics.
Yes, sir. Stay safe now.